Hi and welcome. This is David Guest. I just wanted to welcome you to the webinar today. A few technical issues there, but I suppose I wanted to also welcome Jim Schaefer, who's with me today.
G'day, David.
G'day, Jim. How you going?
Good, mate. Thank you.
A bit of Jim's background. He's been in marketing for over 20 years. He has a postgrad in marketing and he's run his own agency for the past 13. The reason I asked him to come in today is because he's been not only a marketing agency, but he's been doing the hands-on marketing for his clients who are all in the small, medium business space. And he sort of explained that the way he does it is he's like an outsourced sales and marketing arm for his customers. But the thing that got me is he's got this great topic, marketing your business in 7 days. And being on the coalface with regard to marketing and the way things are changing, I thought I'd get the insights from Jim today as to how we can improve our marketing and our reach within the current environment. So, Jim, over to you.
Thank you, David, and welcome everybody. I do appreciate your time. I know that everyone's busy trying to make a dollar in this fairly tough environment. So I just thought when I met David some time ago, we thought it prudent to just have a chat to you about how we approach marketing for our clients. Now, this is a fairly top-level presentation to talk about the 7 steps that we would normally go through for a client. So we've entitled it "Marketing Your Business in 7 Days," but it might take 7 weeks or 7 months, depending upon the intensity of the program. So our first slide. One thing we recommend you do is to really define your business and where it fits in the marketplace. A key issue is, who are you? Who do you represent to your clients? Who do you represent to your prospective clients? Define the marketplace in terms of the dynamics, the competitive set. So it's really important to understand who you are. If the founder of Revlon said, "We don't sell cosmetics, we sell hope," so he was basing his philosophy on I guess, an emotional slash psychological format versus actual physical cosmetic thing, David.
Yep.
So really important to define who you are. That's you as a business owner, but also you as a business in the marketplace. What do you do? What do you offer to customers they should deal with you versus the competitor next door? What's unique about your proposition? Is it a fabrication process? Is it a intellectual property piece? What do you do that is different from your competitors? And I think, David, you mentioned that in a lot of your seminars as well.
Yeah. So, Jim, can I ask you, this is probably one of the toughest things that a business owner has to contend with, is looking in the mirror.
Yes.
And answering the question, why should I buy from you and not your competitor?
Mm-hmm.
How do you help people actually define that?
We normally go through a rationalization. We'll look at a SWOT analysis,
Yep.
The strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Yep.
Out of strengths, we will then, I guess, prioritize those in terms of the benefits of dealing with the customer. We look at their weaknesses and see what they're not good at, and do a force field analysis over that. Then we go through a rational and emotional rationalization. So what's the emotional thing you do for your clients, and what's the rational thing you do for your clients?
Right.
And that can often come out and become the platform for communication.
Sure, because I suppose with most people buying on emotion and not logic, we really need to understand what is the emotional journey.
Exactly right.
That they're taking a client through.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Oh, by the way, if anyone's got questions along the way, the best way to get them through is there's a little questions tab on the right-hand side, or there's a chat window. If you start typing questions in at any time, we'll look at those as we're going through the presentation, and we'll attempt to answer those if we can.
No problem. And I think it's also important to understand you can't help everybody. A lot of businesses try to be all things to all people. I know that, David, you talk about niche in some of your work.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important to find your niche and promote that very heavily as your point of difference. And that flows into your unique sales proposition or your unique selling proposition. What's unique about your business to differentiate yourself from the marketplace? Because of every category now, with the advent of the web over the last 10 years, is very crowded.
Yeah.
So to find a niche and to find a unique USP within that niche gives you a saleability that maybe your competitors don't have.
Yeah.
So I guess the first step is really to define your business and what's different about it.
Great. So once we've got that, what happens next?
We then look at the next stage, which is against the planning. Once we understand what your business is all about, what's unique about it, we then help them define a marketing plan.
Yep.
Now, because people are getting time poor, 10 years ago we would write marketing plans as a document. We now will work with clients collaboratively in a workshop situation, such as yourself, David. We'll then essentially compile a very brief marketing plan with clear objectives and clear strategies coming out of that. The first question we often get is, do I need a marketing plan? And we say, well, it's like getting your car in Melbourne and driving to Port Hedland in WA without a map.
Right.
You just won't get there. And if you get there, it'll be by default rather than by planning. So a marketing plan is really a roadmap to the future.
Yeah.
The first thing then we do is to set targets.
Okay.
And all businesses need targets and objectives.
Yep.
They need to understand where they need to be in 6 months, 12 months, and 3 years' time.
Yep.
The Japanese, for example, the Asians do a 30-year business plan.
30 years.
Because they understand that the sons and daughters, or mainly sons of the owners, will move into the business moving forward. So, but we generally look at 12 to 2 years targets because the marketplace changes dramatically from day to day.
Yep.
So we try and quantify the targets and objectives for each of the business categories.
Mm-hmm.
And then we put behind that the elements of the marketing plan themselves, which is the strategies and the executional aspects. So we'll have a calendar. We will then define budgets. We will allocate responsibilities to people in the team, and then understand what people want from the marketing plan, what their expectations are. And this has to be malleable because one day you can have a unique proposition in the marketplace. You can be knocked around by a competitor online the next day. So you have to be very flexible in terms of the expectations of the marketplace.
Yeah, look, and now more than ever, I know, like statistically, the average person received something like 2,000 messages a day in 1992.
Yes.
So here we are, 2012. The average person's receiving something like 30,000 messages a day.
That's right.
So it's probably more important now than ever to be really clear on your uniqueness, but also dynamic enough to break through the clutter.
Well, that's right. People are bombarded from the second you wake up with your digital phone going off or your clock going off, and then you put the television on, then you fire up your PC and you're bombarded with spam and so on.
Yeah.
So it's very important that from a marketing point of view, it's all quantified and it's all very clear.
Yep. Excellent. All right. So once we've done the planning, we've gone to day 3.
A very important thing to understand is your customers. Now customers evolve in a life cycle point of view. They evolve demographically. There's a very simple model that we use across pretty much every category, which has been around for about 40 years, called the AIDA model. The AIDA model goes from essentially non-awareness, people don't know about you or your product or your service, to an awareness.
Yeah.
From that, and that's the expensive part. That's the advertising, the promotion, the online, the direct marketing aspects. That's the expensive part of the process.
Yeah.
You then want to get some interest. Okay. So if the offer is articulated effectively with the right USP and the right language, you generate some interest. From that, you want then to get some desire. So I want to talk to you. I want to test your product. I want to drive your car. I want to taste your cola.
Yeah.
And then there's some action. So from that, you have an engagement, and then you move to loyalty, and then you move to super loyalty. So as the progression people go through psychologically, and when we're talking to startup businesses, for example, their awareness is 0.
Yeah.
They get a bit concerned about the cost of building awareness in a particular category. So that's where the expensive parts. That's a bit of the scare for some people.
So can you just give me an example, like in this day and age with the internet being so strong, what sort of campaigns would you put in place to build awareness?
It comes down to the previous discussion. What's your objectives? Who's your target market, and what's your offer?
Right.
If you think back, and I'll take you back 15, 20 years ago, the Hyundai launched in Australia.
Right.
Hyundai was a very old Korean brand. They entered the market in Australia with the Hyundai Excel. You're old enough to remember the Excel, David.
I do.
12999 drive away. They knew that the highest next car up was the Ford. They were selling for about 16 grand. So what Hyundai did, they built a network of dealerships aligned to the current network of, I think, Ford and Holden. They launched the car with a massive campaign on, in those days, radio and TV.
Yeah.
They invited consumers to come into their showrooms, and they drove the Hyundai Excel, and they got a free CD of top 20 songs.
Okay.
So they went through that awareness thing through massive media. They created interest by saying, come in for $12,999. They got desire through the CD, and they had a very high conversion rate. Now, Hyundai is now number 2 in Australia. Number 3 after Holden and Toyota.
Wow.
So they've really done a good job on that AIDA model.
Okay, great.
The second thing that we think about is the involvement. If involvement is really how involved is your customer in buying your product. Yep. If you can imagine buying a paper or a bottle of milk or a carton of milk every morning versus buying a car or a house or an investment property,
right.
The level of involvement in a very low commodity product, such as a carton of milk versus buying a house, is opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yep.
So If it's a very highly involved purchase, people need to have a lot of information.
Yes.
So a really complex website, a lot of information, a lot of communication. If it's a low involvement model, such as a bottle of milk or a newspaper, it's just about brand awareness.
Okay.
Don't need much information. So you've got to think about that in terms of the consumer processing of that information.
Right. Okay. So how do we get our clients involved? Can you give us some examples of the smaller business sort of engagement models? What sort of things have you been using with clients successfully?
There's been a real shift the last 5 years to online.
Yep.
We've traditionally done, for a startup business, I can quote, say, a chair manufacturer we're working with. 5 years ago, it would have been developing a brand and a logo and a brochure and some direct marketing material and a catalogue.
Yep.
Now it's developing a brand and a logo, an online presence, a LinkedIn presence. We're going to post some of these items on architectural portals. So it's because people are now accessing the website, the web astronomically higher than 5 years ago.
Yep.
We've moved away from traditional, what we call offline, to a lot more online things to give people immediacy.
Yeah. Okay. So really, the online side has really made a total shift in the media.
Correct.
Which means the content that we're providing has to be much more dynamic.
That's right. So inquiry forms, blogs,
yep.
Newsletters, those things that interact with people are very, very important.
Right. Okay. So after involvement, what happens next?
Well, you have to think about what factors affect purchasing. Is it psychological? Is it rational? Is it lifestyle based? Is it demographic? So once you've analysed your customers and what they're looking for, you have to understand how they purchase and why they purchase.
Okay.
So that's very important. In terms of, we've seen a real shift in the last 10 years away from transactional marketing to relationship marketing.
Right.
So customer relationship management is a key term.
Mm-hmm.
The bulk of that is a database.
Right.
So when we go into clients, both young and new and old, well, the first thing we'll do is look at their database and how they leverage that to communicate. So the keys to customer relationship management are understanding your database, have as much detail as you can in that database,
yep.
Regular communication that's relevant. It can't be too salesy. It has to be newsworthy, has to have some interest to them,
yep.
And it has to reinforce your brand.
Yeah, I know one of the perspectives I use with a database is that it's one of the biggest assets in a business. And every time you communicate with that database, you're either increasing the value or decreasing the value of that asset.
Yeah, exactly right.
So getting too salesy means you're diminishing the value as people become less receptive to your offers.
Yes.
Nurturing those people and providing lots of value and information so you're making the relationship stronger actually increases the value.
That's right.
And one of the exercises I get some of the clients to do is actually quantify and actually put a dollar value next to different levels of engagement.
Yes.
So an email address, unqualified, is worth maybe 50 cents.
Yes.
So once someone's been on the database for a year, if they've been engaged, they're now worth maybe $10.
That's right.
And so we can look at them as different value all the way through. And that's really probably, I think, the easiest way to encapsulate what the value of that database is.
That's right. And the incidence and the intensity of that relationship can reflect itself in how you talk to them, how often you talk to them, what gifts you might give them for Christmas or Easter or whatever those things might be. So we recommend very heartily that people understand those dynamics. Now, I guess the fun part, once you understand the marketplace, understand your business, understand what your customer looking for, the fun part of marketing is all this stuff, the customer communication.
Right.
Now, in the interest of time, I won't go through these things individually, but there are a number of options now that are very cost effective. What we found the last 10 years is we have to become more accountable. The old days of putting ads on TV, radio, cinema, and hoping for the best have not disappeared, but they've dissipated.
Yep.
What we're seeing in a macro sense is things like direct marketing, public relations, sales promotions, networking, and online makes marketing much more accountable now. So if you do a database exercise and you send out X thousands of invitations, and you make the offer time bound and quantifiable, within a certain time frame what your response is going to be.
I suppose even more so with the internet, we can measure everything. So we can actually see how many people click through, how many impressions there are for ads, those sorts of things.
Yes.
So I think what you're saying is right. The accountability is pivotal, and it brings us back to this measuring of the statistics. Like, is the traffic moving? Are people clicking through? Are they reading? Are they hanging on a page? Those sorts of things.
Yes.
So
and things like sponsorship, as an example, they're very hard to quantify.
Yeah.
So you'll see in the marketplace a lot of people move away from sponsorship because they can't quantify the impact.
So how do you quantify it?
Well, again, you have to have measurement tools. For example, if you were going to sponsor a local footy club, local cricket club, that will cost you $500 for a sign, $500 for a donation. What we recommend is you actually hand out sponsorship, cards or brochures with a QR code on the back.
Yep.
Now, for those of you who don't know, QR code is a quick read code. You can get downloaded for next to nothing. They can be scanned on an Android or an iPhone, and they can go through to a dedicated YouTube or promotional page or a website page.
Right.
So you can capture the response you get from sponsorship as you can with packaging, as you can with brochures.
Right.
So in every of those categories, I mean, direct marketing, obviously you can quantify. PA can quantify from the exposure you get in the press.
Right.
Sales promotion is a sales response. Networking, number of contacts you have or business comes out of that. Signage is a bit more hard to do. If you're in retail, you need signage obviously to reinforce your brand. That's we have clients who put QR codes on banners.
Yeah, I was going to say this QR code thing is actually just starting to take off. And what it is, for those who are not clear, it's pretty much a square-looking bit of computer code, and you'll see it on some signs these days. You'll see it on some products, and you can just scan it with your phone. It takes you straight to a link, which might be a website or a video. But the way it's effective with signage is sometimes people will just have a compelling headline on their sign, and they'll say, "Want to find out the 7 ways to reduce your tax?"
Yes,
and there'll be a QR code there. So anyone who understands what a QR code is will just take a photo of that with their phone and it'll take them straight to the website.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, so we can use that in a lot of sponsorship, like you were saying, advertising and signage, just to really now measure the responses for those sorts of things.
Exactly right.
Yeah, excellent. So let's get going here.
Pardon me.
That's all right. So we're up to day 5.
Okay, so day 5, month 5, week 5. Again, we've put campaigns together in the space of a couple of weeks, which is fairly hectic, but we tend to do more longer term campaigns. One thing that I'd recommend, very, very strongly is the website content is paramount. In Australia, about 87% of all searches are done on Google.
Right.
So essentially, websites going to be built for Google.
Okay.
Now, Google is a very, very large and complex beast. The search of websites are done through a series of algorithms that no one really understands apart from the honchos at Google. But at the end of the day, website content is king. So understand the keywords in the category. So understand what your customers are actually punching into Google, and that can sometimes be a misspelling. Okay. So people actually will type in, and we have the software that actually spits out by category what people look for. Yeah. And very often there are misspelled words in there. So you have to have that involved.
Okay.
The right images. You can put title tags over images that Google can read. Strong headlines, call to action, offers, interactive questionnaires, downloads, all the things that are really important as website content. Yeah. Performance of website, it's again down to I guess the functionality. Some people look for an online brochure just for information. Yeah. A lot of other people look for transactional things. So they have shopping carts and blogs and inquiry forms and calls to action and downloadable PDFs and manuals and so on. So it really comes down to what you're looking for from your website. I guess a lot of people listening have heard about SEO. Yeah. SEO is a fairly complex thing. Again, keyword research is paramount. Having the right meta tags and title tags and website's important.
But just in English.
The website's constructed essentially as a framework. Yeah. Meta tags there are things called search bots or spiders that every search engine has crawling around the world electronically. They'll come into your website, they'll read the framework at the back. The meta tags are the first things these spiders read. Right. So for you, it would be David guest, action coach, coaching, business development, whatever the keywords are. Yep. So the spiders read that. They then come into your headlines. If that makes sense for meta tags, they go in further. They then look at your copy. If that reinforces the headlines, that reinforces the message.
So there's a bit of a science to making sure that we optimize for Google. Now, I do understand this because, in my day when I was younger, and you'd be the same, is we could argue about a point for hours, not really knowing how to find the source of information. These days, the conversations are killed by people saying, just Google it. Yes. Yeah. So this thing, Google, is being used by everybody to do their research.
That's right.
And so what I suppose I'm getting out of this is that if people are doing research before they buy a product, you want them to find your information, your content.
That's right.
So building content on the website, not so much about your product, but about what they're searching on or what their frustrations are.
Yep.
So white papers, just in ebooks information, is a way to really sort of get people moving towards your website and starting to engage.
And back to that relationship thing, if people can go to your website and not be sold to,
Yep.
and find information about the thing they're looking for,
Yep.
and then you have credibility, you are providing information at no charge and no hard sale, there's a relationship starting to be formed.
Great. So now I know she got social media here, but with our restriction of time, if you were going to summarize social media in a nutshell, how would you explain people's approach to social media?
The summary would be Facebook.
Yep.
1 in every 8 minutes around the world is spent on Facebook.
1 in every 8 minutes.
So 12.5% of all web time this is validated. We did research for clients 6 months ago.
Yep.
So 12.5% of all online time is Facebook.
Wow.
It's just a monster.
Okay.
So if you're, and again, the 25 to 55-year-old female skew on Facebook, people think it's younger, but it's not. It's largely female skewed. So if you have that target audience in your business, then you need to have a Facebook strategy.
Okay. So when you say Facebook strategy, what sort of things should people be looking to do?
A professional Facebook page for your business.
Yep.
Some promotional, and again, on Facebook can, if you're selling cosmetics, for example, and you're aiming for 25 to 55 or 45-year-old females, you can actually do on Facebook keyword search terms people are looking for.
Yep.
Down the side of their profile page or their home page will be ads for your cosmetics.
Okay, so you can do similar to what you do with Google, you can do with Facebook as well.
Yeah, based on hobbies, habits, and the profile.
How do you suggest people go about building a following for a page?
The most cost-effective way is promotionally.
Yes.
You can run very targeted ads by region, by profile, by occupation, by whatever it might be.
Right.
And it's not expensive. It's not like AdWords, which is quite expensive. You can run campaigns on. We've done it for clients for under $1,000, for a 3-month period. So it's not a huge cost.
Okay, so you can really use those ads to just build up your following. Your sort of likes.
Yep, likes.
For your page.
And then when you do a promotional offer, you can go to the likes, and they can drive. We're doing it for a couple of clients in the retail space.
Yeah.
So they drive them into the retailer to pick up the product.
Excellent, awesome. Okay, so that's really the online component. What's on day 6?
The key thing is at the end of this process is to budget for it.
Yep.
So obviously the first thing that the clients need to understand is where do they start, and that's very often with for a startup, a brand, a logo, a website, and so on and so forth. For an established business, it's saying, well, what do I want from current clients? We have a client retention strategy and a client development strategy. So we just have priorities from that.
Cool.
And given the fact that most SMEs have a very limited marketing budget, we look at a test and measure strategy.
Right.
So we'll say, what do you think is the biggest pain for your clients in the macro sense?
Yep.
And what's the biggest bang for your buck? So it might be we'll test a direct marketing piece, we'll test a newsletter, and we might test a Google AdWords campaign or a Facebook campaign.
Okay.
So very low cost, and then we test and measure those repeatedly.
Yep. So let me ask you, like this whole notion of a marketing budget. Most people I meet in small business, their marketing budget is as little as possible. Okay.
Yeah.
And so really, I don't see that as a budget. I see that as fear.
Yes.
Because I noticed you said bang for buck here and how much is enough. I often say to people, you shouldn't be looking at your marketing budget as an expense. You should be looking at it as an investment.
Entirely right.
Now, if you're measuring everything and you can tell me for every dollar I invest in marketing, I'm going to get $2 in profit back. How big should my marketing budget be?
Well, give me $1 million then, David. I guess that's often the question, because for companies who haven't been conditioned to using marketing as a tool,
yes,
it is exactly that. It's a cost.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's viable or reasonable to give you a guarantee on return. But our approach generally is to keep costs as low as we can.
Yes.
Test a methodology. If you do the rationalization and you do the strategic development, then it's a reasonable punt.
Okay. So really, when you talk about budgeting here, what you're suggesting is that the business owner should actually be very diligent about working out what their expected return is.
Yes.
And so rather than just throwing money at different ideas like, paying for a website or paying for a Facebook campaign, or even Google can become quite expensive.
Yes, it can.
So if there's an expected return and we budget for that, we measure for that,
Yep.
now we can actually anticipate whether we should continue a strategy or shift.
Yeah, I agree. And that's often in fact, it's pretty much always the case. We'll test once we've done the rationalisation, the strategic development. We'll then test a number of things. We'll, for a short time frame, we'll measure the response, and then if it works, which generally does because the homework's been done, we just roll it out slowly.
Fantastic.
So it's all margin positive. That's our objective.
Excellent. Excellent. So let's move on to day 7, which should be the day of rest.
Well, the interesting thing, there's no real rest period. You have to then set the action plan.
Right.
So in terms of what we've discussed, the last half an hour, what are the actual things that needs to be done? So we just always sit down with your team. If it's a sole trader, it's a different thing. We can support that. But discuss and agree the proposed program amongst the entire team. So there's a lot of buy-in to that.
Yeah.
We then agree timeframes and allocation of responsibilities. And generally, we'd recommend that people within the team take responsibilities for various aspects of the project, with the owner or the proprietor overlooking those things.
Yep.
We then commit to budgets because a lot of people will run an ad in the paper. The phone won't ring, so marketing doesn't work.
Yes.
So it's got to be a commitment that people are abiding by for a 6 to 12 month program.
Yeah.
So we commit to the budgets. We then execute, and that's often the hard part when you have to sign your first check for a press ad or a new website. That's often the hard part. Once you've implemented, then review it on the basis of the KPIs you've set up, and then measure success.
Okay.
Our marketing is an art, not a science.
Yes.
I don't think there are many good marketers who actually guarantee a result. But if you work with your marketing team to implement things and test things, then measure things, then revolve, it's test, measure, and re-implement, you're likely to get a very good result long term.
Yes, yeah. So it's a bit like a guided missile. I don't know if a lot of people know this. When they send a rocket to the moon, it's got a guidance system. You know what percentage of time it's actually on track?
No idea.
It's as low as 2%.
Really, yeah?
So 2% of the time it's on track. And the issue is when it's on track, the guidance system doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
It can only correct when it goes off track.
Right.
So the whole testing and measuring idea is that we know we're going to fail in marketing.
Yes.
And we don't know where we're going to fail, but what we do know is when we do fail that we have to shift.
That's right.
So this whole idea of testing and measuring is really an iterative process, which means that you can't guarantee any marketing result.
No.
But I can guarantee you if you're not marketing, you'll get no result.
That's right. That's right.
So look, just to sort of wrap it all up, if like for the business owners that are listening to this call, Jim, what would be the sort of top 3 tips you would give someone who's sort of entering into a market where they may or may not have had a marketing budget before, but in the new world of marketing the way it stands, what are the things that people really need to be looking for?
Well, I think the first thing always is to understand your customer.
Yep.
So that can be done through telephone interviews, through questionnaires, through online surveys. Understand your customer and what their pain is.
Yep.
And that can be emotional, psychological, rational, whatever it might be. So really understand that.
Right.
Understand their motivation.
Okay.
So why are they going to buy from you versus somebody else? And within that, what's your USP they offer?
Yep.
And then and obviously talk to a professional marketing agency, that will often help. And then once you've decided that you're going to go to market, stick at it.
Right.
Because it's a long, hard road.
Yep.
Because some things you do will work well, some things won't.
Right.
We often see people get scared very early. But in my 30 years experience, you stick to a program and you abide by the recommendations, you stick to the budget, and you actually keep going, then the results will come.
Okay.
So tenacity is a key part of this.
Right. Excellent. Okay. So look, just in wrapping up, I suppose if people are interested in more information, or is there anything that you can provide that we can possibly send out to the guys that are listening?
Certainly, they can go to our website, theschaefergroup.com.au. And we'll also provide to listeners today, David, we have an ebook that we'll send out to them in the next few days.
Okay.
That actually explains this program in much more detail. It gives them advice how to set up Google AdWords, how to set up LinkedIn, how to set up a lot of the online stuff.
Yep.
So that's with our compliments to your listeners. And they can call me, and I'm happy to have a discussion with them. Again, no obligation, no charge.
Yep. Over
the next 2 weeks to help them on that track.
Great. All right, Jim. Well, thanks very much for your time today. I hope the guys have got some value. Just going through some of the questions here. One of the questions was, can you recommend a good marketing plan template? Look, I suppose the best thing there for them to do, Jim, is to contact you.
Yeah, certainly. Again, the ebook has some of that stuff in there.
Yeah. And look, we have recorded today's webinar, so we'll be putting it up on the website as well for people to review if there's anything in there they want to review as well. Finally, I suppose there was a bit more of a question about the QR code. Do you need an app? Yes.
And they're free.
They're free. So basically, you download an app to your phone. It is new technology. I know some people are not sure as to how it would work with marketing, but after you sort of investigate a bit more, you can start to realise that it's actually a very effective method of creating a message and some intrigue out there as well.
And it makes you a bit groovy. Having a QR code on your business card or your sign or your brochure makes it a little bit funky, which is a good thing.
Fantastic. All right, Jim, thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you, David.
And we'll catch up with you again soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.